This is Michael Popok, Legal AF. Donald Trump may enjoy some sort of immunity, but that doesn't extend to his co-conspirators and people in his rogues gallery like Rudy Giuliani, who's now been permanently disbarred by the bar regulators in New York. I'll talk about that in a minute. After a 2.5-year investigation, a hearing before a referee, which is a form of judge to adjudicate the issue, and the findings made that have now been adopted entirely by the appellate court, First Department in New York, of which I am a member, led by the Chief Justice there, Diane Renwick, and 4 other judges. They have found that Rudy Giuliani should not only be suspended, which he has been for over 2.5 years, he should now permanently lose his bar license. And as of today, he has. He will be stricken from the rolls of lawyers who are active and are allowed to practice in New York. He no longer has a good standing certificate and will no longer be able to practice law in a state where he became a lawyer in June of 1969. But in June of 2024, he's just a non-lawyer because of his actions. I'm going to read to you from this decision that was just rendered in the matter of Rudolph W. Giuliani, a suspended attorney. That's what they call the matter. And the findings that were ultimately made by the referee that we are just learning about now. In particular, there were 16 charges by the office, the Attorney Disciplinary Office that brought this matter before them, the Attorney Grievance Committee in New York. The reason that we are in the First Department is because Rudy Giuliani practiced his entire career in Manhattan, which is governed by the First Department. And so the referee found that there were knowing falsehoods made under oath, respectively to certain state legislatures and courts, and that this professional misconduct also constituted violations of the penal law, meaning there were crimes as well, and that Rudy Giuliani committed perjury. Let me read to you from just some of the examples here so that you understand what is going on here. Where Rudy Giuliani said that thousands of non-U.S. citizens voted in the 2020 election in Arizona, on page 10 of the order, the referee found, and this is adopted by the Appellate Division Court, the referee found that in violation of those ethics rules, Giuliani falsely and dishonestly asserted that in Arizona, tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of non-U.S. citizens voted in the 2020 election. He made those statements on his podcasts and in radio broadcasts and in statements made in appearances to the Arizona state legislature. Respondent stipulated, this is very important, Giuliani stipulated at the hearing, meaning he did not contest this fact, that there was no evidence to support the claim that tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of non-U.S. citizens voted in Arizona during the 2020 election. He had no factual support for that whatsoever, that he was relying on a couple of documents that were created by his own legal team. But the referee found as to those documents, each contained unsupported assertions about illegal persons being registered to vote or having voted, and they can't form a good faith basis for the respondent's claims. As to the illegal voting, the referee also found that the U.S. Supreme Court decision about Arizona's registration did not support the allegations of voter fraud because individuals who simply cannot produce documentation of citizenship are not necessarily non-citizens. Thus, the referee found that Giuliani's claims of illegal voters participating in the election in Arizona are on their face, false and dishonest. This is the reason Rudy Giuliani's now been disbarred permanently as a lawyer in New York, having already lost his Washington, D.C. bar license, and that's on page 11. Among the many other things that the referee evaluated was whether Rudy Giuliani had any basis and told the truth in his public statements about the State Farm Arena in Georgia and in Atlanta and vote counting, and whether those videos indicated large-scale fraud. That's also the basis for the $148 million defamation judgment against Rudy Giuliani by 2 election workers in that State Farm Arena, Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss. And what the referee found is that during the hearing, Rudy vigorously asserted that the videotapes had been altered by the Georgia Secretary of State or by the grievance committee attorney, which was completely false. The referee found that not only did the State Farm Arena tapes simply did not show any illegal activity, but that Giuliani invented falsehood, and that extended to even casting 2 innocent election workers as serial criminals, as we know. But we're not done. The referee, now adopted in their decision making by the full Appellate Division First Department, also said that in the claim that thousands of felons voted illegally during the 2020 election in Georgia, on page 15 of the order, that respondent Giuliani had already stipulated that was false. That neither hundreds nor thousands of ineligible felons voted during the 2020 election in Georgia, which he already admitted to. And then I just want to also read to you from page 18 of the order, where Rudy Giuliani claimed that that there were actual recordings of 1,000 people admitting to committing fraud in the 2020 election. The referee said that when Giuliani claimed that he had only misspoke about his statements, that he didn't mean records of people alleging fraud, that he meant something else like an affidavit testimony or even an FBI interview. At best, the referee found that Rudy Giuliani's position was one intentional false claim built upon another. But I continue because the referee continued on page 23 of the ruling. As to the aggravation factors which warranted disbarment, the referee found a pattern of misconduct by Giuliani. This pattern comprised 16 sustained charges involving 8 different disciplinary rules, 3 that are applicable in Pennsylvania, and under New York's rule for falsehood during the process itself, meaning the referee found that Rudy lied during the disciplinary hearing itself, which he took as an aggravating factor to hit him with disbarment. Namely, false deposition testimony, that Rudy gave false deposition testimony, it's on page 23, to the office of the grievance committee office, and a lack of candor in his own hearing testimony as to how liability was established against him in the defamation suit brought by the 2 Georgia election workers. Numerous lies under oath before the Missouri state legislators, and also that she went through a list of things that he did wrong during the hearing itself. On the second day of the hearing, on October 11, 2023, Giuliani accused the counsel for the attorney grievance committee about that he possibly deliberately altered evidence. Giuliani then proceeded to engage in a back and forth with the tribunal, meaning the judge here, in which he was both sarcastic and disrespectful, requiring his counsel to caution him. He was represented by a former judge, Giuliani, at this hearing. Later that day, Giuliani accused the tribunal of railroading him. That was in his social media posts and on his podcast. He also made the same accusation again later in the proceedings. On 2 occasions, the hearing had to be paused and the respondent excused from the room with one of his attorneys because of his disruptive and disrespectful behavior. This from a guy that used to be the U.S. attorney in New York, in the Southern District of New York, and been the mayor of New York. But it continues. On October 24th, at the continuation of the hearing, Giuliani verbally attacked counsel for the grievance committee and asserted that he was being unfairly treated and the proceedings were completely political. Respondent engaged in similar behavior numerous times throughout the hearing. He walked out of the hearing twice on October the 26th. On the second occasion, this tribunal noted that respondent was yelling and making accusations about having members of the grievance committee jailed. Note to Rudy, you're no longer the U.S. attorney and you don't have those kind of powers. On the last day of the hearing, which was devoted to the issue of sanctions, respondent chose not to appear at all. That's on page 23 of the order. They also, as the referee noted about the disbarment and the reason for the disbarment on page 24, respondent Giuliani's singular reputation and position as the personal attorney for the President of the United States, which was then Donald Trump, gave his acts and words a special currency to the public. They allowed what he said to be credited and his ideas to be believed when, if promulgated by others, they would have been dismissed as incredulous. Taking advantage of his unique position, Giuliani told numerous lies in numerous forums, all designed to create distrust of the elective system of our country in the minds of his citizens and to destroy their confidence in the legitimacy of our government. This behavior has done immeasurable damage to our democracy. And that is why there's been a recommendation for disbarment, which has been completely adopted. And here's the final findings on page 30 of the order, again entered by a full panel, 5-judge panel led by the Chief Judge Renwick in the First Department Appellate Division for Manhattan. Accordingly, on page 30, the motion to confirm the referee's report and recommendation should be granted, and respondent disbarred from the practice of law effective immediately, meaning today, as of this hot take, and until the further order of this court, and his name stricken from the roll of attorneys and counselors at law in the state of New York. I am an attorney. I am a counselor at law on the rolls of this very department. We take this kind of stuff very seriously as we self-police our profession. Respondents' cross motion to disaffirm the referee's report and recommendation should be denied. All concur. Effective immediately. He is commanded to desist and refrain, Rudy Giuliani, from practicing law in any form, either as principal or agent, clerk, or employee of another, appearing as an attorney or counselor at law before any court, judge, justice, board, commission, or other public authority, giving to another an opinion as to the law or its application, or any advice in retaliation thereto, or holding himself out in any way as an attorney and counselor at law. It is further ordered that he shall comply with the rules governing the conduct of disbarred or suspended attorneys, and that he has been issued a secure pass by the Office of Court Administration, a fast pass to get through the court system. That's revoked. Now, that's what New York has done. Washington, D.C. already did the same thing. Rudy Giuliani can no longer call himself a lawyer. He is a former, now disbarred lawyer. He will have to petition at some other time, well into his 80s or maybe 90s, to have himself put back on the rolls. He could have voluntarily turned in his license and then live to fight another day and try to get it back at some other day. But no, he put the grievance committee through this process, through an entire evidentiary hearing that went against him. He acted out and acted inappropriately and with complete contumacious behavior towards the referee, which was charged against him in the decision to disbar him. And he committed grievances and lied under oath during the actual grievance committee process. Unbelievable. Now, to answer a question that's out there, if Trump ever got back in office, could Rudy Giuliani hold a position in the Department of Justice and or with the Attorney General of the United States now being disbarred? The answer is yes, unless the Senate is controlled by the Democrats, and he's not confirmed at that cabinet level, assuming it's a cabinet level or a confirmation process position. Could he be put in temporarily as an acting interim? Yes. There's no requirement in the U.S. Constitution that, or in law, that somebody actually be a lawyer that holds many of the Department of Justice's key positions. But that is for the people when they go to the polls in November to make sure that doesn't happen. To not only vote at the top of the ticket, but vote down ballot to make sure the right people and adults who care about democracy are in the respective positions in the House and the Senate. Otherwise, you could have, think about it, Attorney General Rudy Giuliani, who's a disbarred lawyer and soon to be a potential felon as he's being prosecuted in Georgia. We'll continue to follow all things that happen in the MAGA world, the Trump world, about civil rights, constitutional rights, and things that matter at the intersection of law and politics. One place only, on a podcast we call Legal AF. Join me on Wednesdays and Saturdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on this MeidasTouch network. You knew that. Free subscribe. I said free. And then you can join us also on all major audio podcast platforms. Until my next hot take, until my next Legal AF, this is Michael Popok reporting. Heary, heary, Legal AF Law Breakdown is now in session. Go beyond the headlines and get a deep dive into the important legal concepts you need to know and we discuss every day on Legal AF. exclusive content you won't find anywhere else, all for the price of a couple of cups of coffee. Join us at patreon.com/legalaf. That's patreon.com/legalaf.